Recently we looked at Manchester's newest pirate radio station, Base FM, which has been broadcasting for several months, and it got me thinking about some of the other pirate radio stations that have been and gone on the FM dial in Manchester. So let's have a look at some of the biggest and most well-known pirates from the Manchester area during the 1980s and 1990s. You may be familiar with Buzz FM. The earliest origins of the name Buzz FM come from the early 1980s, when a student dorm room in Manchester became a pirate radio station for a short time. MC Cheggs and DJ Sausage Fingers broadcast music to neighbouring blocks of flats and had residents flashing their bedroom lights on demand. This is the first incarnation of Buzz, and it was short-lived, as they were busted by the DTI whilst on the air. The name did live on, albeit completely separate, in one of Manchester's best-known pirate radio stations. Fast forward to around 1993 and the birth of Buzz 88 FM. In its heyday, around the mid-1990s, the soul, ragga and hip-hop station was on the air 24/7, but this was later shortened to just weekends and sporadic activity in the late 1990s and early 2000s. Buzz 88 FM was based at station manager Eric B's home in Manchester. It was raided by Ofcom and the police in December of 2002, and all of the equipment was taken whilst Eric was in London being interviewed for a BBC documentary. Around 4,000 records, computers and station equipment was all seized. He did replace the equipment, but it was taken again during another raid in February of 2003. Around this time across the UK, nightclub owners were being warned that they could face heavy fines or even jail sentences if they hosted parties for pirate radio stations. A government Christmas crackdown was targeting clubs promoting pirate stations, telling them that they could face the same punishment as pirate stations themselves. The campaign claimed its first victory after a club in Manchester cancelled a party for Buzz FM, after receiving a warning from what was then the Radio Communications Agency. Sometime between 2007 and 2009, after numerous raids by Ofcom, Buzz FM became silent, and it wasn't heard again. DJ Eric was ordered to pay £10,000 in cost at Manchester Magistrates Court for running the station without a licence. He said he didn't regret running the station, which, like others, supported charities and nurtured local DJ talent, and that he aimed to start again after applying for a broadcasting licence. However, this never came to fruition, and Buzz FM was the last of the Manchester Pirates to operate during this time. In 1992, a small radio station called Love Energy, which was also known as Energy L'Amour in the early days, started a broadcast on 99.6. It reached an estimated audience of around 100 listeners in the areas of Moss Side and Hume. As the broadcast continued, the audiences grew, and the calibre of DJs broadened as the interest in this new station exploded. By 1996, and now on the new frequency of 99.7, Love Energy was at its peak, broadcasting the best in R&B, reggae, dancehall, garage, house and soul to an estimated 20,000 listeners. It was also hosting shows including Mark Morrison, Drew Hill, Mary J. Blige, Sylvia Teller and many more. The station was also building platforms for some of the best DJs in the Northwest and the UK, as well as serving and helping local businesses strive by giving the local community an outlet of information and news which was at that time non-existent. In 1998, however, the broadcast came to an end, with the upcoming arrival of the Commonwealth Games and a huge clean-up project by Manchester Council. Fast forward many years to Sunday the 14th of February 2016, and Love Energy made its official return, albeit online only, but it's still broadcast to this day. In the early 1990s, one of Manchester's king of the pirates, Soul Nation, was making waves across the northwest with its 24-hour mix of soul and hip-hop. Despite being a pirate station, they were trying to emulate London's Kiss FM and gain a licence from the Radio Authority. In 1993, along with DJs from Frontline Radio Soul, Soul Control launched Soul Nation 104.6 FM. The Soul Nation launch party was attended by over 2,000 revellers and took place at the world-famous Hacienda Club in Manchester. The station's secret headquarters was in Moss Side, housed in a flat on an estate just 10 minutes from the Little Alex pub. The studio was in the living room and consisted of a grey velour three-piece suite and a navy blue carpet and rug. With this, there were twin Technics decks, a 6-channel mixer of CD machines and tape decks, and all the other gear required to push soul out to the masses. A notice on the wall warned that playing reggae or ragga was a sackable offence. Broadcasting 24/7, the station was already winning over the soul community in Manchester. Soul Nation was also becoming the linchpin of a music empire that already encompassed a recording studio, a 20k sound system, and a fledgling record distribution network. There were attempts to make the station legal when it won a restricted licence in 1997 for 1 month. It was broadcasting out of the Hume area under the name Crystal FM. Unfortunately, after the restricted licence period, neither Soul Nation or Crystal FM returned. Soul Nation was busted in the mid-1990s because they were transmitting on 104.6. This was the BBC allocated frequency for their GMR relay for the east of Manchester. An unlicensed radio station using the name KFM was first heard broadcasting in the Stockport area on the 31st of January 1984 on 94.2 MHz FM. The radio interference service traced the transmissions to a premises in Marple just outside Stockport, but found the transmitter unmanned. The station was very quickly broadcasting again, and investigations continued to locate the operators. In 1983, a new venture that would become KFM was formed. They wanted it to be a professional station from the start, so the company Mersey Valley Electronics was created and a modern transmitter that used a frequency synthesizer was obtained. KFM was unusual in that even though it originally launched as a pirate radio station, it broadcast test transmissions for a number of weeks prior to going live. These tests were originally 2 hours long and were pre-recorded at Ride Music Studios and other secret locations in Stockport onto a Revox B77 reel-to-reel tape recorder. The tape recorder was then transferred to the boot of a car and was parked up at various locations such as a pub car park near Disley and the tops of local hills such as Werneth Low, Lantern Wood near Bowstone's radio site and Lyme Park. Regular broadcasts started in November of 1983 on 94.2 FM from a studio in Middle Hillgate with the transmitter and aerial at Goyt Mill in Marple. Its following grew rapidly and the station changed its studio location to Goyt Mill with a state-of-the-art studio setup. They upgraded the output to stereo and were eventually on 24 hours a day. Along with Radio Jackie in London and Sunshine Radio in Shropshire, by the summer of 1984, KFM had become one of the biggest pirates in the country. They were the early pioneers of community radio and was the only station that played local bands. By 1984, the daytime lineup included many DJs, some you may remember such as Jumpin' Johnny Owen, Dave Starr, Simon Richards, Pete Smith, Big Al Rockwell, Dodgy Kevin Webb, Rob Charles and Stevie Megamix King, along with Wilf the Weatherman, Captain Flint and many more. KFM ultimately aggravated its local well-established competitor, Piccadilly Radio. Programme controller Colin Walters said in a documentary on Radio 4 that the station was producing radio on the cheap and that it wasn't paying needle time, wages, standard business taxes and licence fees. There had been some interest from the authorities, but nothing too major, even with the introduction of the 1984 Telecommunications Act. However, this came to an end on the 8th of November of that year, when the station suffered a major raid. KFM did return, but on 1017 kHz AM and not on FM. There were even rumours that they were going to buy a ship and anchor off the coast of Liverpool. In February of 1985, there was a court case resulting from the raid the previous year, which resulted in fines totalling £1,600, as well as suspended prison sentences. By March of 1985, Sunshine and Jackie had all gone, and then there was another big raid on KFM. By March of 1985, Sunshine and Jackie had both gone, and there was another big raid on KFM. They did return once more, but this was the last time. After another raid in the April of that year, they decided to call it a day. KFM were later one of the first 80s pirates to get a licence and returned to the airwaves legally in 1990. They came on as an indie music station with a great lineup including Terry Christian, John Ronson, Neil Cossar, Joe Patricks and Spence MacDonald, as well as pre-Royal Family stars Carolina Hearn and Craig Cash. Despite critical acclaim in its legal days, it failed commercially, and Charles Turner sold the licence to Signal Radio. It became Signal Cheshire for a while, and following a couple of ownership changes, is now known as Imagine FM. Small Town Radio, later Southside Radio, the name changed purely because it sounded better, started out on the frequency 92.1 and later moved to 103 for better coverage from their transmitter site on Werneth Low, just outside Stockport. First broadcasting in 1984 from its studio in Stockport Town Centre, not much is actually known about the station. The studio was raided on the 15th of March 1985 while the DJ was ironically playing a song by the Police. They came in with the DTI and started packing up the studio kit and records. The microphone, interestingly, was left open, but unfortunately there is no surviving audio from the raid. The DTI officers were surprised by the sudden static hiss from the monitor in the studio when the station controller who had raced up to Werneth Low unplugged the transmitter. Southside was on 103 MHz until just before the frequency was taken by Key 103. This places the end of the station's life around the end of 1986 into early January 1987, although it may have well disappeared after the DTI raid in 1985. On a cold, wet Manchester evening in October of 1989, a community radio station with a difference, Manchester's first 24-hour all-reggae music station, Frontline Radio, was established. The station's name and its first tagline, Frontline, it's where the action is, came about as a direct response to the negative image Manchester had acquired, particularly from the Moss Side area, referred to by the media as Gunchester. Their aim was to create a platform for many of the more positive elements of the community. Frontline Radio's philosophy was a simple one, 100% reggae music to the maximum. All things connected to reggae and reggae music and the culture surrounding it, whether it be good or bad, including all of its subgenres. Over the next couple of years, Frontline Radio established itself as one of the leading pirate radio stations and the voice of reggae music in the northwest of England. Frontline strived to produce broadcasts of the highest of standards, and in 1992 Manchester saw the launch of its sister station FLR Soul 100.7, FLR meaning Frontline Radio Soul. FLR was a radio station with the same philosophy as Frontline's 24-hour reggae music station, only this time it was being applied to all things connected to hip-hop, rap and R&B. Both shared the same resources and broadcast simultaneously from the same building, which was quite an innovative and unique setup. After working together successfully for 2 years, there was a parting of ways, and FLR Soul 100.7 was disbanded, paving the way for the birth of Soul Nation, which, as we've discussed, went on to start a new chapter in Manchester's R&B and hip-hop music scene. Frontline Radio continued to go from strength to strength, broadcasting reggae music 24/7, 365 days of the year. However, after numerous raids by the DTI, thousands of pounds worth of fines and threatened imprisonment, Frontline Radio made its last broadcast on November the 5th, 1996. Not all pirate radio stations were hidden away in bedsits and flats in urban high-rises. The aptly named Tree FM was a mobile station that was literally hidden in the trees. During 2 months in 1997, a pirate radio station broadcast across Manchester from treetops at the airport's second runway protest site. The station became well known after the Manchester Evening News accused station operator DJ Fluff of interfering with Manchester's air traffic control. The idea of the radio station was not to cause interference, but to provide a soundtrack for protesters on road and airport protest sites. So, after switching off while tests were carried out on the safety of its transmitter, the station returned confident that they were not causing any interference whatsoever. The local police and press worked hard to ensure that the station's operators were paranoid. There was police surveillance on protest camps, a radio communications agency investigation unit parked nearby, and surveillance aircraft monitoring the site from the air, so there's a good chance the aerial was spotted at some point. In fact, the day the Ofcom van turned up, the station went off the air for 3 days, as the operators were scared of the consequences of being caught. One evening, 4 radio communications agency vans came within metres of the tree that housed the transmitter and aerial. They parked for a while and then left. Little did they know that up that very tree was 4 tape machines, 100 tapes and the station's transmitter. When the station finally wound down after the protests, it was broken down into its component pieces and dispersed amongst the protesters with the exception of the transmitter. This was left in the tree, as being caught with it could have led to a fine and imprisonment. Tree FM did continue in other areas of the UK at numerous protest sites for some time during the late 1990s. The story of Unity Radio began in 2001 when founder John Green set up a pirate radio station with close friends Wesley Milne and Robert Hargreaves in Moss Side. Tragically, Robert was murdered in the same year, but John continued to run the station between 2001 and 2004 with others in the radio community to help young people in care or who had been victims of serious and violent crime. Originally named 106, shifting addresses and constantly looking over his shoulder were part and parcel of everyday life for John, also known as Greens. Before long, he submitted a bid to Ofcom for a legal broadcast licence, but was beaten by XFM. In 2005, John also met Julian Guest while working on the Unity Radio website. In 2007, the pair incorporated Northwest Media and applied for an Ofcom licence, beating off 30 other applicants to win the bid in 2008 and become legal. Unity Radio was eventually launched in Ancoats on December 10, 2010 as a fully legal station and continues to broadcast to this day. So that is some of the most well-known pirate radio stations across the Manchester area. As of 2021, with the exception of Base FM, there are no pirates left in Manchester anymore. However, there were numerous other stations that operated across the city during the 1980s, 1990s and early 2000s.